Hey there YouTube, AJ here, and today we're at the middle of the car. Well, middle to front, whatever. Anyway, we're in this general vicinity here, and we're going to try to figure out how to get these pedals to fit in there. We're going to start that by making a pivot point on the back of my radius rod mounting plate here at the clutch equalizer shaft, Z-bar, whatever you want to call it. This rod right here, right now it's made out of conduit. It's actually this piece on the pedals. Anyway, we need a point for that to sit in and pivot. On the original truck, that was this piece here, pivoted on that ball. That ball mounted to the frame went in there. So we need to figure out a way to put that ball on the back side of this right here. So the first thing we need to do is figure out where it needs to go. Now we do currently have our conduit pivot rod that I made. That's going to give me a pretty good idea where it's going to go. Angle finder. So I need to make sure it's level and straight. I think what I want to do is maybe throw some tape on the back side of this so I have a place to mark. Alright, that should give us a pretty good place to mark. Did we get a mark on there? Man, I can't see.
I have to go through this all again.
Let's put it back on there and try it again. So maybe we should try this two ways here. We'll start by just getting it level and marking it top to bottom. Okay. Now, we'll get rid of the level finder, the angle finder. I'll try to square it up here. Okay, now we got a circle on the back side here. So it's really hard to get an exact measurement marking on there. So what I did was I made a circle where I traced around the conduit. Then I tried to draw crosshairs in it as best I could to get center. And now I'm going to center punch that. This might be one of those things where I just have to eyeball it and hope for the best and fix it later if I have to. I don't know how I'm going to see this to drill it. I can't even see a mark. So next, we got to find a way to drill a hole in there. And we got tight quarters, which means we need a close quarters drill and a drill bit. And some eye protection because I'm going to be laying underneath it. Alright, so we're going to start by trying to drill a small pilot hole through this from the inside. And then we got to find my letter drill bits so you can get the proper final hole size for a tap. Okay, well, we have that hole drilled. Now I need to find my letter drill bit set so I can drill the proper size because I'm going to tap this hole. And I'll explain that in a minute. Okay, I do not have the correct letter size drill bit. So I'm going with 17/64, which is the closest thing I have to it. A little bit undersized, so we'll give her a little swirl and hopefully she'll work out. Alright, what I want to try to drill this as straight and level as possible. Of course the battery's dying. Gotta swap out batteries. Alright, now we got more power. Let's see if we can get a hole made. Alright, so this bit's a little undersized. So we're going to do a little swirly thing and hope we get it to the right size. Next up, we want to tap this to 5/16 fine thread. Why am I going to do this? I'm going through this for a reason. And that reason is because I don't have a way to mount this using the mounting tabs that are on here. So what my plan is, I'm drilling and tapping that to run a bolt in there. Now I could just bolt it from the outside. However, I'm going to eventually weld that in so it'll be smooth on the outside. But for the ball, I'm going to cut it off square here, drill and tap it, so it screws onto the stud. At least that's the plan moving forward. Throw some cutting oil on this, and man, I hate this can of cutting oil so bad. Let's see if we can get a tap started. Forward a little bit, back to break the chip, forward a little bit, back to break the chip, back and forth like that. And there we go, all the way through. Let's back this out. Now, hopefully, we can thread. It's got chips on the back. I gotta get the swarf off. Hang on. Okay, I'm gonna need a Allen key to get this threaded in, just because it's a button head. All right. Okay, so now we have this stud on the back side of the plate. That should be where our ball mount goes over, so we can connect to it. That's all looking pretty good so far. Next thing we gotta do is go prep our ball mount to this. Okay, the next thing I want to do is try to get the back of my ball mount as flat as possible. Alright, if you're wondering why I'm not cutting that all the way off, it's because this gives me a convenient place to hold on to it while I work on it. Alright, so now you can see I've got this nice big flat spot to work with, and now I need to find my center on that, put a hole right in the center so I can tap it. Leaving this flange on it also gives me a way to level it pretty much. So if that's marking on it, and it is, lay a little math on it, see where we're sitting. 7/8. That looks pretty center to me. Put a punch mark in the center. All right, we're getting close there. We're about 3/8. I want to go a little more than that though, because I need to have room. Since I don't have a bottoming tap, I need to have room for the end of the tap to go, so make sure I get enough thread. So I probably want to try to get to like 5/8, so I need like another 1/4 inch. All right, I'm just a shade past 5/8. So next up, we need to drill it with the size we need to tap. Okay, let's see how deep it is. That seemed to go in there pretty darn fast. Wow, that bit's hot. Shoot. Yep, already there. All right. Okay, so we got our hole in the back side of it. That's about down into here, but we're going to fill that with a bolt that's welded to that plate, and then we're gonna screw this on there. So now let's prepare for the tapping. We have our tap. Gonna put some more cutting fluid in there. That feels like it's bottomed. Nope, it's not. There it goes. Just had to back up and clear the chips. I do not want to strip this and or break the tap off. This is where we need a bottom tap, and I don't have any bottom taps, and so we're not going to use it. Now let's get our bolt and see how it goes in. Looks pretty square, so that's good. It's a plus. All right, so the next thing we have to do is we obviously have to cut this tab off, and what I want to do there is I want to cut it where there's a square side on both sides, so we have a place to use a wrench to tighten and untighten this ball if we ever have to. So I might as well just cut it on this side when I cut it off, and then before I do that I'll flatten this side as well. It probably won't be a standard size, probably have to use a crescent wrench on it, but at least it'll give us a place to thread this on and off without having to use vice grips or something on the ball itself. So I got the ball cut off, shaped. When I flattened off the sides, it was really close, so I went ahead and filed it to fit a 3/4 inch wrench. So it's got a standard wrench that'll work on it. And so it's time to go ahead and put that on here and fit our transfer bar. I did go ahead and start taking apart my pedal assembly. I took off the old single circuit brake master cylinder because I'm going to be replacing that with a dual circuit for safety. So our chunk of our F1 cross member came off with that. So now we have, I removed the transfer bar from the actual pedal assembly. So now hopefully all this stuff's easier to work with in these pieces. I'm going to leave the assembly like this for now so we can start fitting our transfer bar. First thing we need to do though is go ahead and put the pivot point on there. Alright, first thing we're going to do is go ahead and thread in our bolt or stud from the outside. I'm going to thread that in far enough to where the ball will actually bottom out before it touches the plate. Everything's getting tight here, so we need to okay. Alright, now we're going to back that on in to where the ball is against the plate. And that tells us where our pivot point's going to be. Now, I've already made an error in my calculations here. There is a spring inside this that holds it out from the pivot point, and there's also a plastic bushing that goes around this pivot point and a washer that goes on top of it. So I'm not going to put that on there yet, but where I've already made a mistake in my calculations is when I go to put it on here, as you can see, the arm that the linkage attached to won't allow this to go in because it's hitting the frame. So alright, so now we got to pivot, get it, pivot, because it's a pivot point transfer, never mind. Anyway, so now I got to go change tacks, and I think what I got to do is take this arm or lever, whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to have to heat it up down here close to the pivot cup. And for now we're just going to bend it over so we can get this onto the pivot cup without it hitting the frame, and that way we can just test fit our length here and see if we need to change our length on this pivot tube. I'm hoping I don't have to. I'm hoping it fits without having to change that, because I really don't want to have to cut this and weld it, because that'll be my only option if this is too long. I know it's not going to be too short from just sticking it in there and eyeballing it, but it could be too long. I'm hoping it's not. I'm hoping it's just right. So let's go heat this up, bend it over, and take it from there. We've got it bent over pretty far. I know at some point I'll have to bend part of this back up straight, but I don't want to do that until I get my pedals in there and I know where the connecting rod's going to be so I can bend it at the right place. Let me tell you, that ancient grease in there, when that started burning out, whew, that was a foul smelling thing. Anyway, it's still hot, but we're going to go ahead and try to fit it and see where we're at. Okay, I took the spring out of here. Fortunately, I realized it was still in there before I got it too hot and pulled it out. I don't want to lose the temper in that spring. But so this is going to be pretty sloppy fit right now, if it goes on right. Right now we're just kind of checking for the distance though. Oh yes, look at that. We should be able to get our pin in. Right now it's just a 1/4 inch bolt. I don't have the actual pin, but we got about 3/8 to 3/16 of play back and forth. So I'm guessing that's pretty darn perfect. So we are good on the length. As you can see, we are clear over here of our frame rail, and we'll have to bend it back somewhere from this point up. We'll be bending it back straight depending on where our pedals end up being. So next step, let's get the pedals in here and see how they fit. All right, pedals. Ow, pinched my arm. Oh, freaking A. All right, I'm gonna go upstairs and work these from the top. You stay down here and look up. Let's start by just kind of sticking this up above under that cross member, maybe. If it'll go. Jeez, hang on. Okay. That's obviously going to be too high because our pedals are above our frame rail. And the top of our frame rail is essentially going to be our floorboards. So it's going to have to go under that. Oh, jeez. Let's see if we can get this pin in this linkage. That will maybe help us hold it in place. Even though the linkage is going to be kind of twisted. That linkage is frozen. There's some penetrating oil on this. It's going to have to start moving sooner or later anyway. Well, that's not going to work. No, hang on. Wow, that is not wanting to budge one bit. Okay, it took a little work, but we got that yoke freed up. That's all the way down, so that's not going to be where it needs to be. This needs to be up. Oh. So we're definitely going to have some kind of plate coming off. And this thing's going to have to hang below freaking frame rail, which I don't like. How do we determine where this needs to be? Oh, this pin's about ready to come out. That's going to piss me off. I think maybe I need to straighten up my linkage now to where it's just inside the frame rail. So right now I'm looking at maybe having the bracket be 1 inch in front of the bottom lip of this cross member. I wonder how much throw do I need for my clutch. Okay, I think what I need to do next, so I can get these pedals more lined up, I need to go ahead and take my transfer bar arm and bend it up straight here. Okay, so I've got my rebent pivot tube arm on there. Got the pedal assembly in. I've got it kind of up where I think it wants to be. My hole for the pedal is going to be kind of right where the firewall meets, so I think it needs to be back a little further, which means I need to, I'll have to lengthen this rod, but it's just a rod, so it shouldn't be a problem. Alright, right now we're right at 3 inches out from that cross member. I really think I want it to be about a 1/2 inch back in. So I think what I'm going to do is make a piece, come in here kind of diagonally to connect from here to the frame. We'll make it bolt to the frame. We'll weld it to this, and it'll come in, have a flat to mount this to, and yeah, I think that's what we need to do. I would weld everything to the center, the standard cross member, but I don't think if I do that I'll ever be able to get it out all as an assembly. It'd be a real pain. This little piece being above the floor line shouldn't be an issue because it should be below the toe board. I think that's what I'm going to do. 2.5 inches out from here, build a piece to fit. Alright, so we're going to try to use this extra Model A cross member that I got. As you can see, one end of it was pretty rotten, so I used the other cross member, and I'm also going to try to use that piece of F1 cross member to make our diagonal brace slash pedal mount in here for our K member. Before we start going at it blindly and just start cutting steel, we're going to try to make some kind of a cardboard pattern first. Today's cardboard sponsor is brought to us by Mott's Assorted Fruit Snacks, and let's see what we can do here. Alright, so let's go draw in these lines. We'll come off as square as we can to this one, which you know this isn't straight. And I know what I'm doing, I think. Alright, come on.
So, roughly there. Okay. Yeah, already straight edge.
Okay, so we're going to try to use this diagonal line here will be the front edge of this. Does that make sense to you guys? I know it looks weird, but I think I know what I'm... Hey there YouTube, Editor AJ here. And I spent a lot of time making a template and figuring out how to make a bracket for my pedals out of that Model A cross member and how to just make it work for the situation. I actually just ended up editing a lot of that video out simply because I got to the point where I was getting ready to start cutting it out of the cross member, and this happened. Okay, so I got to looking at the inside of this cross member, and it is pitted really bad. It's pretty thin. For having this be the mounting point for my brake pedal and my clutch, you know, two pretty important controls in making the car go and stop. I don't think I want to use this. I don't think it's going to be strong enough. It's just too pitted in here. We're done with this. So basically I'm going to resort to what typically works for me. I'm not going to plan this out super detailed. I'm going to take this piece of C-channel and I'm going to cut it to where it will fit between my transmission contact point, not my transmission mount contact point that this is going to weld to eventually, and the inside of the frame rail. And once that's cut, we will just go through the fit and refit process until we get it to where we need it to be. This will become my mounting face for my pedal assembly. So we want to cut it there, but we want to also cut it, we want to be able to fold this piece in. This part will fold in, this part goes under the frame. I'll have to neck that down, that'll be fine. So eventually we'll cut this back in here. Alright, so here's what I've come up with so far. You can see where I pinched this end off to where it fits inside the frame rail. Left this flat piece out here for bolting to the inside of the frame rail. I didn't mean to round it. I was planning on squaring it off, but it wasn't bending square, and I ended up just rounding it off because I thought, you know, in the end it's actually going to be stronger, give it a stronger profile. But and then I smashed the ends in to meet it. Now the idea is that this will go into the frame rail, weld to this, and then the pedal will simply be mounted on here. And right now we're at 3 inches, so I need to, this is at 3 inches flat down here and 3 1/4 down here. So I need to take at least 1/4 inch off of this flange here, so it'll fit in there. Since I actually only wanted it to be 2 1/2, I'm wondering, I think what I'll do first is go ahead and make it at 3 inches. Take 1/4 inch off there, go ahead and drill my bolt pattern out, mount the pedal out, and see what it looks like at 3 inches. And if I don't like it, then I'll notch this corner so it sits back further and try again. Obviously we're going to need this all the way up to the top, which is going to make putting bolts on a pain. Yeah. So if we mark this and come in 1/4 inch from that to drill our hole, then we should be theoretically good, right? I don't know if that's right or not, but you know what they say, no guts, no glory. I'm just going to go ahead and mark it, drill it, and maybe just drill the top 2 holes so I can bolt in just the top of it and weld it back if I have to. Maybe some guts, some glory. Let's try that. Well, that's what happens when a piece of metal spins loose and hits a can of cutting oil. So that's all gone. It's a shame you all were on time lapse when it happened. Oh man. I've got it kinda mocked up. I still need to cut this brace off right here. I don't want to just hack it off. I'm gonna lift the body up, grind the rivets off from the bottom so I can save that brace. I might need to use that for a body mount or something, so I don't want to just trash it. Okay, well, this piece is bigger than I thought, more integral than I thought. It's going to be more than just taking out 2 rivets to get it off. So I am just going to go and trim that end off, and so we can get moving on getting this pedal assembly put in here. Okay, so right now, that's where it looks like our pedals would sit. Just below this, that's where the toe board would be. So that looks like it's going to give about 4 or 5 inches of travel, maybe even less than that. Maybe, I don't know, something like that. So got everything kind of temporary in there for the clutch pedal. The brake pedal is just freewheeling for now. I can extend this rod here. I've got like 1/2 inch, 3/4 travel to go. And so I can bring this pedal up further for the return. But for right now, I mean, it seems to be in a decent spot. I don't know if it has enough travel where it's at right there. Now we'll see where the clutch actually engages. Okay, something fell. I don't know what that was. Oh, it was bolts. Okay, the clutch is actually engaging before I get to what would be the floorboard. Yeah, because I'm good 3 inches off. Alright, so right now I'm trying to spin it and it's not spinning. There, it's spinning. There, it's not. So yeah, it's clutch seems to like that position, and I still have some adjustment left. So all things told, I think we can kind of move forward with it in that spot. I think. I do need to get this over a little more into the frame rail. So I guess our next step is I gotta take all this back off. I gotta rework the end of this to get it to go in further. It's hitting and it's not going in quite all the way. You can see my linkage rod here. If I do that, it's gonna be, I think it's pretty good where it's at actually. If it comes all the way up, actually I think what it's telling me, I don't think this is good, because I think what it's telling me is that the clutch pedal assembly needs to go down. Because in order to get this to not hit, this needs to be lower. So it's swinging through this area up here. How much steel do we have? I don't have a lot. I could drop it down. Shoot. Alright, need to think on this for a little bit. Okay, I've thunk on it a lot. And I won't say that everything I've done to mount these pedals so far has been a total waste of time, because it hasn't. It tells me where I need to go, but everything I've made so far I'm not going to be using. We've got our pedals all set up. Thing I don't like is this is kind of rubbing there. It's going to slowly wear, even though it's all the way up at its full extent of its travel. It'll probably be okay, but I just don't like it. I mean, there is a tiny bit of clearance in there. More concerning though is the location of the push rod for the brake. It is just barely skimming under the cross member here, and I'm going to have to mount my master cylinder on the back side of this cross member. With the rod being just barely under the cross member, that's what's causing my problem. So with that rod being just barely under the cross member and trying to get that lined up to go into the master cylinder can't bolt on this edge here, because the bolt holes would want to be right where that edge is. So that means the master cylinder either needs to come up or go down. Going up isn't an option, because then it's going to be inside the car. Let me see if I can show you what I mean. So there's where the push rod's got to go into the master cylinder, and the bolt holes are in line with that. So if we're trying to mount it like that, it's going to cause problems. It's just going to be difficult to make it work. So I think I need to drop it down underneath just a little bit. Hopefully we'll still have clearance here. We should. That shouldn't move that much. I think that's what we need to do, is just go ahead and plan to drop it down just underneath the cross member. That means our assembly here needs to go down. That'll help this point and the pivot point, because the pivot point will go down and it'll bring the rod up into this section of the arm or the lever, so it has more clearance, and I can still bring this over a little bit this way. So we're going to make a new bracket that moves these pedals over a 1/4 inch that way, back a 1/2 inch this way, and down 1 inch. So this piece is pretty much useless now, and I gotta see if I have anything I can make this bracket out of. I might just have to weld the whole thing together from flat pieces. So as you can see, I've got a lot of time invested in figuring out how not to mount my pedals at this point. And I hate to do this to you, but this is going to have to be to be continued. I'm going to cut the video here, and we'll come back in the next video and start trying to figure out how to make the new plan. I mean, I'm showing you all of this because I feel people can still learn from failures and learn from what I figured out that I can't do. So hopefully you'll still watch and like, comment, subscribe. If you got suggestions, go ahead and make them in those comments. Thanks for watching. I hope you consider subscribing and see if I actually get this figured out. In the meantime, I'll think on this and start trying to come up with a design and see if my new plan, if I can make that work. But until then, YouTube, later.